discussion. Last week, we spoke about the characteristics and behaviors of narcissistic parents. We always hear a lot about the traits and characteristics of narcissists, but one thing we never really hear being spoken on are the victims of the narcissist. And in this case, we will be speaking about the children who were raised by narcissistic parents and how they behave and react, their actions, how they respond, what they can do to get help, and things of that nature. We never really speak on the victims, we only speak about the narcissist specifically. So this week, this is what we're going to talk about are the traits of the adult and older teen children who were raised by narcissistic parents. We're all aware that being in proximity to a person with NPD, especially being the child of a parent who has NPD, has a very negative effect on your mental health. These parents seem wonderful and caring when they're in public spaces, but once they're behind closed doors, they rant, scream, and condemn everyone in their path, especially their children. The narcissistic parent will exert control over their child's life, be possessive of the children, and see their children as an extension of themselves instead of them being their own individual human beings. Unfortunately, there are some long term effects from growing up with a narcissistic parent. The children of narcissistic parents frequently experience emotional disorders. They have a propensity for self criticism, shame, and just overall low self esteem. Relational and emotional regulation is also an issue with them because of the way they grew up under the thumb of a narcissistic parent. So, let's look into some of the common characteristics of an adult or an older teen who grew up having a narcissistic parent. One of the first characteristics in these children that we notice is them having the inability to put themselves at the top of their to do list. The adult children of narcissistic parents have been taught to essentially put their parents' needs and demands before their own. And as a result, it's it can be really challenging for these individuals to think about their own personal requirements without feeling as if they're being self-centered or selfish. They also will put the needs of other people before their own, and this is to their own detriment. Children with narcissistic parents tend to develop anxiety and sadness because they're taught that their wants, goals, and aspirations are basically insignificant. As the child tries to live up to the unreasonable expectations of their parents in order to be flawless, this belief can cause them a great deal of anxiety and maybe even depression. When the child falls short of these demands, they feel as if they're not worthy or if they're not good enough. Always walking around feeling as if they're unworthy. Having a narcissistic parent as a child will make that adult child feel as though they don't have anything to contribute to their connections, relationships, or the world as a whole. This is when imposter syndrome can develop. Even when they now, as adults, enjoy their accomplishments, since they may feel as if they're simply unworthy of it, they won't take the time to pat themselves on the back or speak positively to and about themselves. They tend to display a lot of negative self criticizing. To preserve the narcissistic family structure, the child avoids blaming their parent. Instead, they claim exclusive responsibility for the negative actions of not just their parents, but all the people around them. they might maintain this behavior throughout their adulthood, which will also make them a scapegoat or frequent target for any type of blame for things that don't go the way they were planned. And see in the relationships, neglect, manipulation, or emotional withdrawal by their parents might make a child wary of being in romantic relationships in their future. So, in order for them to feel as if they're being loved and receive constant attention, they're they're going to cling to their relationships and seek approval and validation and permission from their partners. They essentially give away their autonomy and allow their lives to be ran by the people around them in order to make those people happy and not themselves happy. And unfortunately, this leads to a lot of abuse, be it physical, emotional, mental, financial. It opens the door for these children to be abused by their romantic partners, their friends, coworkers, bosses, whoever in the future. They're also placing the satisfaction of other people before their own. These children who grow up with narcissistic parents will have centered their entire lives and personalities around ensuring that their narcissistic parent is always happy and content. And once they're grown and moved on out of their parents' home, they continue to do these things for other people's enjoyment. We see this a lot with people who might choose to work in the care industry. They oftentimes don't have a sense of self worth unless what they're doing in their everyday lives is pleasing other people or doing for other people, even when they're not even happy with the tasks that they're they're having to complete, or they're not happy in their career, they're not happy with their lives. They think that it's their duty to make other people happy with their actions. And that's absolutely true. A narcissistic parent will ensure that they make their kids feel ashamed if they don't live up to their unreasonable expectations and standards. Adulthood can see these feelings of guilt manifest in their people pleasing behavior. They never feel as if they have the right to tell anyone no. You've lived your entire childhood trying to please this one person. Now, as an adult, you think that your mere existence is to simply be of service. So you've now taken over your narcissistic parents' job of shaming you for not wanting to be of service to other people, to prove that you're worthy of just existing. Or emotional control. Narcissistic parents do not provide their children with a good role model of emotional control. And because of this, their children never learn how to properly control their behavior and communicate with others in a healthy way. You grow up in an environment where any action you take that doesn't please your parent with MPD means that you're hit with a massive tantrum. You never learn how to effectively and healthily communicate with other people. You just know that when someone does something that displeases you, it's okay for you to lash out. You yell, throw things, or maybe you even become physically violent. Narcissistic parents fail to acknowledge boundaries, and they will humiliate their kids if their children make any effort to actually create boundaries. Setting and upholding boundaries can be very challenging, especially for children. And once those children grow into adults, they've never learned the basics or the foundation of how to set, uphold, and enforce boundaries that they've created to protect themselves. They were taught that standing up for yourself is a bad thing. Telling someone no is a bad thing. Not making someone happy is a bad thing. You have to please other people. It's your job. And if they aren't happy, it's your fault. And that's bad. So these adult children have left themselves open to be used, abused, and taken advantage of just because they've never been taught that it's okay to say no, or that it's okay to walk away when you're in a situation that's uncomfortable or unsafe. So now that we've talked a bit about the character traits and behaviors of narcissistic parents and the children they raise, let's dig into some of the strategies and tactics that the children can use on how to deal with their narcissistic parent. One thing that we have to keep in mind is that children don't know what they don't know. So it's not going to occur to them that their parent is being abusive towards them. But as they get older and begin reaching adulthood, they have more access to information and exposure to all different types of people. Unfortunately, for young children, if another adult doesn't have the wherewithal to step in and save the child from their narcissistic parent, most of the child's healing won't start until they're in their late teens or maybe older. The one thing that I always try to encourage is that the abused individual avoid direct confrontation. While we're taught that we should get to the point or to the root of the problem and face it directly, chances are if you confront a narcissistic parent head on, you're not helping the situation. You're actually creating an opportunity to make the situation much worse than it already is. They experience humiliation and become vulnerable when someone challenges their ideal world, the world that they've built in their heads, by pointing out their undesirable or unpleasant behavior. So, when interacting with a narcissist, you need to keep in mind that your feelings and perspectives are very insignificant. No matter how much they fight against you and you standing up for yourself. So, if we aren't confronting them directly, what do we do instead? Well, first, you need to have a complete understanding of what is actually happening in the situation. Never try to compete with a narcissist because they need to feel as if they're in charge. And narcissistic parents will punish you if you don't submit to their demands. Being able to meet their needs is way more important than having a healthy family structure. They'll only twist the situation in their favor if you try to reach a compromise. You need to understand that this is not typical conduct of a mentally healthy adult. Next, you need to accept that this is just who they are, and then you have to move past it. This is easier said than done because we all have times when we feel the need to defend ourselves or defend our integrity. You are not going to change the narcissist. It's nearly impossible. They will only change their behavior if and when they themselves choose to do so. So, by you accepting that this is who they are, you're going to reduce the possibility of triggering your own anxiety and depression. You'll begin to see that their negative behaviors and hurtful words are mere projections onto you about who they feel that they are on the inside. They're placing their personal feelings of themselves onto you so that they don't have to take responsibility for their own flaws. Next, you have to stop falling victim to the gaslighting. It's unfortunate that narcissistic parents will frequently give their kids the impression that they're somehow crazy or delusional. A narcissistic parent will claim that it's sunny outside while a hurricane's taking place. The key to surviving is ignoring these narcissistic expressions and try improving your own self worth and confidence instead. If you know, then you know, and you don't have to allow yourself to be persuaded otherwise. Next, be compassionate. And when I say be compassionate, I don't mean that you sacrifice yourself or your mental well being in order to satiate the narcissistic parent. I mean that you need to be compassionate to yourself. You can show compassion without allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. The most compassionate thing you can do when you have a narcissistic parent is to let them have their faults and remove yourself from their presence. Most narcissists have tunnel vision and they're laser focused on what's directly in front of them and how they can use that thing, person, or situation for their own benefit. The time that you spent with the narcissistic parent or self centered parents has taught you that self compassion is not, but should be, your top priority. So, congratulate yourself for surviving the harsh parent child connection. Learn to comfort yourself and offer yourself the affection that your parents couldn't give to you. The process of getting over such a childhood is not going to be simple. It's going to take time and it's going to take a lot of effort. So practice some patience and self forgiveness. It's acceptable to prioritize your needs. Take some time for yourself and decide when to assist and give energy to other people. Saying no without feeling the need to provide an explanation is also acceptable, despite what anyone says about you being rude. You are not obligated to explain yourself to anyone. It's also very beneficial if these children would utilize additional support systems. Having their experiences validated may be challenging for the children of narcissistic parents, especially when they're trying to overcome the effects of their upbringing. Seeking out support from others is a very crucial step in healing. Make up a group of friends, coworkers, or social groups for yourself if you can't find anything else. Joining a support group with other people who have narcissistic parents may also be very beneficial. It's it's key that these children gain self assurance and a sense of their own worth, despite all of the insults that were thrown to them throughout their childhood. It's critical to acknowledge your value as a person. So, finding activities that advance your knowledge and skills will help you feel more confident. Look for things that make you happy and joyful. Try new things and give yourself the gift of positive life experiences. You also need to learn how to set healthy boundaries for yourself. A narcissistic parent frequently pushes your boundaries just to show you that they can. They might trespass on your property, disregard your house rules, or show favoritism towards your kids. You need to establish limits with your parents. And where necessary, you have to learn how to impose penalties for when they step over the line. Even though it could seem like you're correcting the child, you need to be firm and direct when you make a decision. If they continue to break the rules, you might even need to give them a timeout by asking them to leave. Worst case scenario, uh, you probably have to go no contact with them. And at this point in your life, you know how you want to and how you should be treated by other people, narcissistic parents included. And if they cannot give you the respect that you deserve as a human being, then they need not have access to you or your energy, period. So, with all of that being said, you have to be honest and straightforward about your intentions when dealing with your narcissistic parent. You could feel pressured to use sneaky or devious tactics with them, but it's better to just be straightforward and succinct when articulating the goals that you're trying to meet with them. Let them know that you're aware of their undesired or damaging habits and state what you intend to do in response to them. This routine will make it impossible for them to somehow act shocked by your responses and lessen the possibility that you'll feel bad about the choices that you had to make for your own life. They also will not be able to shame or gaslight you into thinking that you failed to make these consequences clear to them, because they will definitely use this as an excuse for you to give them another chance. Oh, you didn't tell me. It's your fault. If I had known that you were going to react this way, then I wouldn't have done whatever, and so on and so forth. So sit them down, look them in the eye, and make it very clear that if you do this, I'm going to do that. No questions asked. And if they do the thing, follow through with the boundary that you put in place without any exceptions. Do not leave the door open for you to be taken advantage of. And there are times when you have to kind of tap into your psychic abilities and anticipate their future behavior. Although narcissists are complex and can be difficult to understand, occasionally their actions can be anticipated and predicted. Most have very distinct patterns of behaviors, and some even have an actual timeline cycle of behaviors. So, by anticipating a narcissistic parent's next move and planning your response, you can deal with them more effectively. Being ready has a lot of advantages, even if you were mistaken on what they might do. It's unlikely that their narcissistic tendencies are just going to disappear. Therefore, exercising caution can help prevent more than it'll harm. You know that the only time your parent calls you is when they need something at the last minute, and you know you can't drop everything to just run and do what they want. So why are you even answering the phone and allowing yourself to be put in the position to be manipulated by them? Ignore the call and text back that you're busy. Ask if it's an emergency. What's the emergency? Show me the proof of said emergency, etc., whatever. Anticipate, question, and prevention in that order. And last but certainly not least, don't be afraid to walk away. Although families are under a lot of pressure to stay together, this pressure may be more detrimental than beneficial. So consider the possibility of severing your ties permanently, or even if it's just temporarily. This might be the only sensible choice in some circumstances. There's no shame in putting your mental health at the top of your priority list. So, we can wrap this all up by saying it's perfectly okay to seek professional help. The majority of people are unable to understand the emotional abuse that you endure at the hands of a narcissistic parent. If you ask for advice from those who've never dealt with narcissism personally, they tend to make you feel a little foolish. Even if they mention troublesome relatives, their accounts might not be comparable to your own. Dealing with a narcissistic parent alone is very challenging. Finding a devoted therapist who offers assistance is crucial because of this. Family counseling can be very helpful if you want to keep your relationship with your parents, even if the narcissists don't typically change. Just keep in mind that change can only happen if your parents are ready to take part. And if the repercussions of having narcissistic parents still impact you as an adult, a therapist who specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy, uh, they can assist you a lot better in overcoming your own difficulties of having to deal with and heal all of that childhood trauma. Dealing with a narcissistic parent is a daily challenge, but you need to keep in mind that you're not alone in your experience. You may feel much better after consulting a therapist or reaching out to a close trusted friend or family member just to get help. And even if you're not looking for help, it's always nice to have someone that you can just kind of vent to and get it all off of your chest so that it's not weighing you down and causing detriment to your own mental health.